Mom, you are on mute.
Thank you. And there we are. So once again, namaskar and welcome to this, our third webinar in this discipleship series. And as always, before we begin, let us sit up tall and join me in our prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahoshay, Swami Shri Yukteswar Giri, beloved Gurudev Paramhans Yogananda, friend and guide Swami Kriyananda, saints and sages of all religions, with love, we bow to you all. Come to us in this webinar. Keep us close to thee. We are thy children. Be thou eternally ours. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. The next chant is to the Guru. So I put the words in the chat box. Do sing along with me if you like. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou can comfort me. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou can comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou can comfort me. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou can comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou can comfort me. If I grieve or lose my way, Let us sit in silence for a little while, and let us take the words of this chant deep into our hearts. Always I'll follow thee. All I live for is to love thee. Only thou can comfort me. Om. Peace. Amen. So, moving on in our study on discipleship, we come to a chapter which we've spoken about very often, a concept we've spoken about very often, and that is attunement with the Guru. Now, attunement to the Guru means a complete openness of our heart and a complete acceptance of his guidance and a complete acceptance of everything that he does. There must be no qualification in how we view the Guru, because you can't say that, he's right in telling me this, but I don't think I'm going to listen to what he said about that because that doesn't seem right to me. The Guru has a long-term vision of what lies ahead for you. He is aware of the karma that you absolutely need to work out. You need to burn up that karma. He's also aware of the little things or the big karma that he can reduce or do away with. So he has an understanding of you, not just in this little ego, but in the larger scheme of things. What you need as a soul in order to progress. And your soul is in this body. So there is stuff that you need to do in this body in order for your soul to progress. And the Guru is aware of that, which you aren't. Because we see, with all the wisdom we can gather, with everything that we can deal with, our vision, our knowledge is limited. You can go to a world famous astrologer and he can tell you a bunch of stuff. That is not enough. But if you submit to the will of the Guru, knowing that all he wants is your spiritual growth, nothing else, nothing for himself. If you see these gurus, see how humbly they live. What attachment, see what they eat. There's so little attachment they have to, the smaller things which seem so important to us of this world. All they want is for each and every disciple of theirs to progress. So qualification in listening to their words does not help us. And here we come to that other aspect. I've started another course, a level 1 course, and there was this one student from Mauritius. And now for level 1, I've started doing webinars as well. They seem to be interested in that. And we just came to before, as we finished the third webinar, and she confided, she said, I was looking for something for so long, and I'm so grateful I have found it. And that is a sentiment that each one of us has expressed. No one can tell us, give us a complete list that this guy is great, he's a wonderful guru, go to him. That one, not so much. It really doesn't matter how big a following he has. And there are great gurus always. But it is important for you to know in your heart, have you come home? Have you found the person that you can submit to? This brings us to what Swami Kriyananda told Master when he first met him. 22 years old he was, and he had driven in a Greyhound bus from one coast to the other. With great difficulty, he managed to get an audience with the Master and blurted out to him, I want to be your disciple. And Master asked him two things. Will you love me unconditionally as I will love you? That was easy. He said yes. And then he said, will you obey me unconditionally? And that had Swamiji pause. Obey someone unconditionally? I mean, what is the use of my own discrimination, my own intellect, if I just have to submit to somebody else? And he asked Master, eager as he was to be accepted by Yogananda ji, because of the love that he saw in his eyes, the trust that he felt for him. But years of conditioning and years of, working things out for himself came in the way. And he asked Yogananda ji, what if you ask me to do something which I believe is not right? And Yogananda ji simply told him, I will not ask anything of you that Divine Mother does not tell me to. And that was enough. That was enough for this 22-year-old white young man who, till before he read this autobiography, didn't know what guru, disciple, karma, dharma, he had no idea of this. But just that assurance from Master that he would not ask him to do anything that Divine Mother did not ask him to do, that was enough. And that is the belief we must have once we know that, yes, we've come home. Once we know that, yes, this is our guru. And this is the second reason, excuse me, why we say that don't go guru shopping. Or by all means, go guru shopping. But once you found your guru, stay. Because you don't know what the guru does, at what stage of life you are. Great advice from another guru may not be relevant to you in your situation. Now we come to one other thing, that if Yogananda is my guru and he's not in the body and he's written everything and gone, but how he's not written anything specific to me, what he's written is general for everybody. But what about me? And what about what I need specifically? How does he know? That guru is alive. I can go there and he can look at me and he can tell me what I need to do. This is where attunement comes in. After all, none of these masters are their body. None of these masters are their ego or their attributes, attractive as they might be. Those attributes draw us to him. Half the world, half the people who have read Autobiography of a Yogi have read it because they've just seen that picture of Master and those eyes just looking at him, and they've been compelled to pick up that book. So yes, those attributes may seem very attractive to us, but that's not the beginning and end of what the guru is. Master used to say that there was a crowd where, there were people there were a bunch of people uh, in California. There is, in Los Angeles, there is the Lake Shrine, we call it. There's Master acquired this. There's a very beautiful lake, and he had a houseboat on it. And uh, so there they used to conduct these musical programs, and even now a lot of people go there. It's a very, very beautiful, sanctified place. And lots of people used to come. The surroundings were so beautiful. The flowers were very nice, and there'd be these musical concerts out in the open under the stars. It was a beautiful setting. So many people used to come and enjoy it, and in the moment, they were totally there. But Master looked at them and spoke to his disciples and said that those who are not our own, they come, they enjoy themselves for a while, and then they go. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that they are not our own. But those who are our own, they cannot leave. They come and they stay forever. Just yesterday, over this weekend, we're having a Kriya retreat, and I've just taken time out of our 3-hour meditation this morning to spend time with you all. There was a talk by Naya Swami Jaya, who I've known for a very, very long time. He's co-spiritual director of Ananda India. And in his introduction, I was struck. He came to Ananda before Ananda came into existence. He joined Swami Kriyananda when Swami Kriyananda was holding classes in San Francisco, and he's a founding member. So he's been there since before 1969. Now Swami Jyotish was there even before that in 67. And I look at these people and I say, they came as young men, they had options, and this is where they've been and they've stayed. That's how it is. That 50 years, 60 years, a lifetime. Swamiji was with Master for the last 4 years of Master's life. And he spent a lifetime after that. Master passed away in 1952, Swamiji passed away in 2013. So that makes it, and he became a disciple in 1948. So that makes it 65 years. 65 years of calling himself a disciple. So if the Master is not in the body, and the Master can't speak to us and say, oh, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to do, how do we get guidance? By attunement and by opening our heart chakra in meditation and receiving the intuition there. I have shared with you that I've experienced it myself many times, and I've experienced it at a time when I was very new to the path. Very new to the path. I told you that I was planning to do something in a certain way. I had to take an important personal decision in my life, a very important decision. And I weighed things up and I said, this is what I have to do. And I went in for my usual morning meditation in the temple in the ashram. And on my way home, I was quiet. And during the course of that day, I took a decision which was contrary to the one I had planned on taking for the last 5-6 months. Absolutely the opposite. And it turned out to be the best. So that is the inspiration that I got. I didn't realize it then, but definitely there was this conviction that this is what I must do. Something inside me told me that. And in small and large ways, it comes to you all the time. So your job, our job as disciples, is to attune ourselves and live by the soul contact and tune in to his consciousness. And in everything that we do, we sit for satsang here and we pray. Why do we pray? We're inviting him into this satsang. So, A, we never lose track of who is the doer, and that even I, as a teacher here, I'm just a channel for bringing his consciousness, his vibrations, his teachings to you. And that's how it will go. So to be in tune, and this is what Master taught us. We've mentioned this so many times. The autobiography of a yogi is one very large lesson in how to be a disciple. Here is an avatar who, as a young boy of 11 or 12, could meditate 8 hours a day, who witnessed so many miracles in his very early life. And yet, he had this craving for his guru. And that is, when I read it, when I read the autobiography, that is the most important thing that I took away. His love for his master. And I said, oh, I wish I could get that. Oh, I wish I could get that. And I was very skeptical of gurus. I was not ready to surrender. I was willing to shop around, take a lot of guidance from here and there, but I wasn't willing to surrender. I thought God has given me free will and an intellect for a purpose. Why should I surrender to anybody? But when I read that book, that is the one thing that really stood out for me, that his love for his master. And that was a teaching. He was teaching us how to be a disciple. Swami Kriyananda, all the books that he's written, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, which the essence of the Bhagavad Gita as explained by Paramhans Yogananda. That's the title. The essence of the Bhagavad Gita as explained by Paramhans Yogananda and written by Swami Kriyananda. So for 65 years, for somebody to be a disciple, it's not some false tokenism that he's throwing his way, that, yeah, okay, I may be king, but you, I give it all to you. No, it was that belief. It was that belief that without that channel, that grace cannot come to me. When Master went back in the autobiography, you can read it, when he went back in 1935, after spending 15 years in the US, his joy at being with his master, his accepting of his master's rebuke. He had a threadbare dari, and master gave him the gift of a carpet. And he says, no, these things may be important to you over there. This dari is fine for me. I don't want it. He accepted that rebuke. This is what attunement is, where you keep that channel always open so that their consciousness comes into you and your consciousness merges with theirs. Invite them into your meditation every day. Now, how does one do that? We know, we've heard of so many great Moni Babas who don't say a word. They don't talk. And yet, people go to them and they receive tremendous blessing. And what is that blessing? What is that blessing after all? What do they get? He doesn't give them laddus and he doesn't give them physical things. He gives that stream, that ligament that binds the two together. he reinforces that channel that the disciple offers to the guru. The guru fills that channel with his grace, and the disciple is overcome with that. The guru has not said a word. He's taken a vow of silence, and yet the disciple is uplifted. So he would Yogananda used to say that silence is the altar of God. Only in silence can you feel God's presence. So then when you ask yourself, then what is the use of chanting? What is the use of kirtan? What is the use of that? If that is all that you are doing, screaming away and yelling out to God and telling him to come and whatever, it can take you only so far. But chanting is excellent because it opens the heart chakra. And that is when the intuition that you get, which is the word of God, which is how he communicates with you, that is when that becomes refined, far more open. Now, there is so much in history. So many wars have been fought. We cynically say that. But history is not just the past. History is what is happening today. Even today, with everything that we know, we are still discriminating. We are still discriminating between them and us, between his God and my God, between him trying to convert me and him trying to convert her. The reality is, God's body is space. God has no form. What are we fighting about? If you want to feel God, you must feel him in your own body. You must you must open that space for him in your own body. In silence is when you can hear God's voice. He doesn't thunder at you. He doesn't write in the sky in golden letters. You go into a space of silence and he will be there. If there is nothing significant you need, he will just shower you with his blessings. If there is something you need, he will, if he does not grant it to you, he will bring you to a space of acceptance. I think I shared this before, one of my Guru Bhais, a young man, and he came onto the path, I think after Swamiji had passed, so he hasn't met Swamiji. And from the beginning, I noticed the sincerity in him. And then he got his wife also to do the course. And then his mother also has now done it. And he has had two boys. And the older one, who was just 15 and a half years old, battled with leukemia for 2 years and passed away last month. And I was in tears, and I am sure that couple also has still do and will for the rest of their life shed tears. But this young man's composure, his acceptance that this child is not mine, this child is Divine Mother's, she knows better than me what he needs, and he's now in the lap of Divine Mother. That is the attitude this young man had. And 2 weeks, just 2 weeks after the boy passed and we had the astral ascension ceremony for him, and they're Sikhs. So in the Gurdwara, they had the Antim Ardas and everything. And I was surprised to see that in our Gurgaon community, the satsang was being led by him. 3 weeks ago, you've lost your 15-and-a-half-year-old son. And 3 weeks later, you're sitting and you're conducting a satsang for your Guru Bhais in praise of your master, in surrender to the Gurus. This is living the teachings. This is the strength that you get. I know another lady, God bless her, she lost her son, and I met her 16 years later. Very good family friends of ours. And she told me, she said, he passed away 16 years ago, but I feel like it was yesterday. And there was nothing but tears. She was a hollowed shell, and she lived in that consciousness of loss. And she lived in that consciousness of this body, my son's body was everything, and he's lost it, and he's gone. So look at the two different situations. As his disciples, of course, we are touched deeply by things that he said, his personality and everything. But it's like Swamiji used to say that he would be outside and he'd be sitting meditating. And whenever he meditated, he would feel Master's presence. And then when it was over, he'd walk in and he'd be surprised to see what's he doing sitting over here, because he was with me just now. That's the consciousness that we need to live with. That he's not in the body, he is in me. Now, how does one do this? So you will notice that sometimes I talk of God and sometimes I talk of the Guru, and I talk of God being space, and then I talk of the Guru being within us. So a great master lives in omnipresence. He is part of that super consciousness. If you have seen, I've given you examples earlier also of these great masters who have written such beautiful expositions on such deep subjects, and you wonder, where did that come from? Where did that come from? We know the story of Ganesh, who was just the scribe for Vedvyas, okay? And so we accept that Vyas spoke and Ganesh wrote. But that is exactly what happens to all these great people. Swamiji often talks about a very beautiful book by somebody called Bell, and it's about the great composers, Mozart and a bunch of others. And this person researched everything that was known about them, and each one of them said that they don't weave a bunch of notes together and, yeah, this sounds right and I'll go this way. They said that the music came to them. Call it a dream, call it a vision, call it whatever, but they heard it and then they put it down. We know of Ramanujam, crazy guy he seemed, but he said that the equation would come to him first. And he said the goddess gave it to him. Very simply, he said, they said, how did you arrive at it? The goddess gave it to me. And after the equation came to him, he'd work backwards to arrive at it. Even the theory of relativity, Einstein, he got that first. It just came to him. And then he worked backwards and arrived at it. So we have to we have to know that these great masters, they live in that space. And uh, Swami Yogananda was forbidden by Sri Yukteswar to study anybody's commentaries on the Gita. He said, you study it yourself, and one day I want you to write your own commentary. That's what he said. And when Yogananda was planning to write it, and he went into retreat to 29 Palms, he took Swami Kriyananda with him. And it's a very interesting thing. Swamiji was young, he was good, and he was very good at writing and editing. And very often Master would tell him, he'd say something and then he'd look at him. He says, write that down. I haven't said that before. Write that down. So that was Swamiji's job description while he was there. So here he was going into 29 Palms, and there were disciples who had been with him since, the early 20s. And here, 25, 28 years later, this young man comes, and when he's going to write the magnum opus, he wants to take him along. So Swamiji was a little surprised, and Master said, yes, Divine Mother came and told me that I must take you. And I asked her again, and again she said it. I asked her 3 times, is what he said. And Swamiji laughed and said that perhaps he himself didn't believe the first couple of times that, Divine Mother wants her to take him. But that's what happened. So Swamiji took down all the notes. Master dictated and Swamiji wrote those down. Then they had some problems. Those diaries were handed over to the parent organization, which Swamiji was he was thrown out of that. And he asked for them very often, but they were considered copyright, rightly so, of the parent organization. That didn't bring out the book about the Bhagavad Gita till maybe 40 years later. And when it finally came out, it was in 2 volumes, so heavily edited. It's brilliant, I'm sure. I'm not knocking it at all. But it is so heavily edited that I, with all my, with being a devotee and just I studied the Bhagavad Gita with Swami Parthasarthi, and I loved it. And I wanted to, I tried and I tried and I tried, but I just got caught up in the details. Not just the details, but all the footnotes that went with it. And I just said, I just can't do it. And then Swamiji came out with the essence of the Bhagavad Gita as explained by Paramahansa Yogananda, from what he remembered, and he had a fantastic memory, in which it is a battle that takes place in our bodies every single day. These characters of the Bhagavad Gita, they are allegorical figures that represent our all the qualities that we have, and that you may want to go through it yourself at some time, because how does it matter to me whose cousin so-and-so was and whose uncle the other person was? How does that matter to us? What we want to know is, what do we learn from the Gita? What do we learn from it? That is more important to us. So this is what the masters do. Again, they give us instruction, we attune ourselves to them, and it doesn't have to be specific to what we do. Once we are tuned in, we get all our answers. Now, I remember we used to have every Tuesday evening, we used to call it a staff meeting day. So anyone who was involved with the ashram, with these teachings, with, serving in any small way, was invited to those meetings. And after dinner, early dinner, we would get together in Swamiji's house, sit around on the carpet and chairs and whatever, and he'd sit there and he would uh, either read to us what he had just written or, uh, you know, just share with us whatever. And we would always, there were times that we would always keep asking him, what was it like with Master? And he would regale us with his days with Master. He'd just written in the beginning, he'd written that book, Conversations with Yogananda. So we just asked him a lot of questions. And I remember just sitting there and with so much yearning saying that, oh, what it must have been like to have been in his presence. So yes, definitely, there was a difference. But then there are people who have not been with Swami Kriyananda and who consider those of us who had spent so much time with Swami Kriyananda, they consider us so lucky. So the point is that in the autobiography, for instance, but in the autobiography, though he writes of miracles, when he was in the body, he never spoke of miracles. The only thing he spoke about was devotion. He used to say, devotion plus Kriya works like mathematics. And this is where we go back to what attunement really is. For instance, how do we concentrate? You've all done it. Take a magnifying glass. We've done it. And go out in the sun, put a white paper there, hold the magnifying glass, and slowly we'd enjoy ourselves when that little speck of yellow turned brown and thing, and suddenly there was a little flame. We've all seen that. We know the physics behind it, that the sun's rays are focused onto a pinpoint, and then what is just warm and normal becomes fiery, strong. That is what we need to do when we concentrate for Kriya. But the difference is that the magnifying glass is passive. It has its qualities, and if the strength of the sun is right, and you've got the white paper, you've got whatever, hold it there, and it will happen. So it is important for us that we bear that in mind, that our association with the Guru is not passive. We have to create that magnetism. We have to draw him in. He's there. He's there. But if we're close to him, what can he do? He's opened our cage and he's inviting us out. But if, like that bird, we retreat to the furthest corners and we peck at him when he tries to come close, he'll say, all right, I'll leave this door open. When you want to come, come. So while we do this, we must always remember what Master used to say to his disciples. Practice devotion, be in tune, be in tune. There was, there were people who would keep saying that, I want to be like you, I want to, and he would just tell them, if you close yourself to me, how can I enter? That's all we have to do. Be in tune, open our hearts. And that is what Master used to tell Swamiji and all his disciples, that attunement is the biggest gift. If you are in tune with me, I will enter. And that is something that we must also always remember. Now, how do we develop our own intuition? Okay. Now, we've seen very often that when we are in a quiet place, that uh, we suddenly get an answer to questions which have been troubling us for a very long time. And here is where the pitfall comes. How do we know that that light bulb that just went off and that answer that we just got to a long pressing problem, how do we know whether it is born of delusion or whether it is true guidance? Because very often in our subconscious state, we get these, little dreamy images which we take for a higher guidance. It is very hard to know. And that is when we are, we've elevated ourselves to a superconscious state and we are not functioning out of all our previous conditioning, all the experiences we've had, all the tendencies, we tend to veer a certain way. And then a sudden image comes into our mind which suits us and we say, yeah, intuitively I feel that that is right, whereas it is not right. So therefore, anything that comes to us in a superconscious state is definitely to be looked into and could be deemed to be intuitive. Now, even when Swamiji would answer our questions so patiently and at length, and we often asked him, was Master also like that? He said, you have no idea. Master didn't talk very much. Of course, they had times together when he would share a lot of things. They even had informal times together. But it wasn't as though he was walking around telling everybody, now you have to do this and you have to do that. No. He would just ask them to practice devotion, do their kriyas, do seva, and be in tune with him. That's all that he asked them. And then there would be times where he'd know. He'd either say that, tell them to beware of something that a spin that they were going into, or just approve and say, very good. And the person knew exactly what he was talking about, of course. They soon got over this or that. How did he know? He knew always. So attunement, as you tune in, you will make mistakes. Like I said, that many times, that which comes from subconscious thing, that will. And when that happens, believe me, Divine Mother steps in soon enough and she will teach you her lesson. She never lets us go astray for any length of time. She will, like good mothers do, give us a whack on our backside and say, no, this is not where you're headed. So there has to be a certain amount of humility in us. And that humility is not humble and self-deprecating. Someone said very nicely yesterday that it's like if a child comes to the mother and says, I've been a bad boy and I'm really not worthy of your love and I'm, whatever. Is that the only time the mother will love the child? Or whatever the child has done, if he just goes to the mother and goes close to her, holds her close, what does she instinctively do? She puts her arms around him. That's what Divine Mother is waiting for. You don't have to go and explain to her, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, because you said this right and you said that right. Just surrender to her. And she will know. She will know if you've fallen down and you've bruised your knee. She will know if someone is bullying you. She will know if you've done something really wrong and how to make amends. So that surrender has to be there. So along with your humility only to the extent where you don't delude yourself and you don't absolve yourself of what you should be doing. Only to that extent. not self-abasement, not making yourself lesser than you are. And so with that humility, there has to be a huge amount of faith. Only then that this tightrope, because the spiritual path is a tightrope, it's so easy to fall this way or that. So this tightrope is, you can walk it only when you offer everything to God and Guru. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou can comfort me. So it's a tightrope, but if we surrender to them, if we are in tune with them, they will not let us fall. They will see us across. So now, what happens very often, and this is something that I remember once we were sitting, a bunch of devotees were sitting, and we were all at lunch, and I said something about the work that I was doing. And I had set up a school, a living wisdom school, and Swamiji was very involved in the guidance, and this was, based on the education for life system that he had set up. And so I had a lot of opportunity, more than other people, to be in touch with him and in his presence and working with him. And so something happened, and it was funny and nice. And so one of the acharyas asked me, did you write to Swamiji about that? And I told them, I've never written to Swamiji. They said, what? They were surprised because people were writing to him all the time, and he was kind. He would reply to them. So whether they had a problem or not. And I said, whenever I do have a real problem, I tell myself, oh, I must ask Swamiji that. But during the day, I used to listen to Radio Ananda, and you can also download that app and just put it on, because the minute I'd enter my office, I would switch on my computer and put on Radio Ananda, and Swamiji's music, instrumental, his songs, and little sayings of his and healing prayers by other people, that would come, and it was very, very soothing, very, very nice. So that would be on. And so I'd say, I think of a question and I say, I'm going to ask Swamiji, and he'll be able to, it's on my mind. And during the course of that day, I get my answer, either through one of the songs, or through something Swamiji says, or through something I read. So after that, it seems just pretentious of me to write to him and say, Swamiji, I was thinking, I've got the answer, so I don't see the need. And essentially, that is a kind of attunement. If you are living in that consciousness and you are thinking on that level, it could be you're not thinking, you're not meditating on the problem, but your channel to them is open. They know what is troubling you. Why would they want you to live with that? And they sent you the guidance. And I didn't always like it. I wanted to argue and I wanted to do things differently. But they did their bit. They told me what had to be done. If I didn't take their advice, I'd suffer a little more. If I took it, I wouldn't suffer that much. That was entirely up to me. So questions come when you are at a lower level, at the conscious level, where your intellect is working and you are weighing things. That's what the conscious level, what you do in consciousness. You are weighing pros and cons. You are, at that level. But when you move to the superconscious level, that is when the true answers come. Now, when masters have no desire. There's no competition amongst masters to have a bigger following than any other. In fact, Sri Yukteswar ji had, perhaps because he was Gyanavatar, he was a very, very stern disciplinarian. Uh, People would flock to him because they knew he was really great, a realized soul. But the harshness of his discipline, there was no unkindness, but it was the discipline itself was harsh. A lot of people used to leave. So his disciples were limited. Great souls, all of them, but limited. You had to be of a very, very high stature to be able to take the kind of rigorous training that Sri Yukteswar expressed and expected of you. But this is very important to always remember that look at the difference. Lahiri Mahoshay was open-hearted, his house was open, people were coming there all the time and meditating with him. He could never be harsh with anybody. And Sri Yukteswar, his disciple, you would wonder that how come he turned out so different? Why did Lahiri Mahoshay not make Sri Yukteswar exactly like him? Because that is not what gurus do. They want you to be the highest level that you can be. And he understood that Sri Yukteswar had a whole different set of karmic inputs than he himself did. And he made him free. And he realized that this could be a great avatar with different physical attributes and different emotional, intellectual attributes. Likewise, Sri Yogananda. If Sri Yukteswar ji was the Gyan avatar, and mind you, when Sri Yukteswar showered his love, it was beyond compare. And that was just a kind of showing you that this is what is in my heart. And then he would close it up. And it was up to the disciple to say, I have seen that. I know the truth behind this guru. And if he seems harsh just now, I know that he loves me and whatever he's doing is for my good. So very few people could stay in that consciousness. But for instance, Sri Yogananda, he opened himself. He was the Prem Avatar. Love. You looked into his eyes and you saw nothing but love. And so Sri Yukteswar didn't turn Sri Yogananda into a carbon copy of himself. The job of a guru is to lift you to your highest potential. And that is something that we must always remember, to seek their help, their grace, and not be consumed with the desire for physical contact. Oh, it's not there. What can I do? It's there all the time if your attunement with the guru is adequate. If there are any questions, you can unmute yourself. Otherwise, there's a lot that you've been given to dwell on. So let's close with our, do you have anything? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me.
Ma'am, we have been talking about open your heart. Like, what does it mean and how to do that? Open your heart. We are talking
Very good.
sincerely.
So, yes. So when we talk of opening the heart, we are actually talking of the heart chakra. And that we know that all the chakras are they control each chakra. We've got, that we've got the astral spine. We've done that. It you can do it right now. Take one hand, take your right hand and put it at the hollow at the top of your spine and at the base of the skull. That's where your medulla is. Take your left hand and put it where your spine ends. Okay? That is, now visualize a hollow tube about an inch and a half in front of your this vertical spine. So it would be almost in the center of your body. That is where your astral spine is. Again, it's about an inch and a half wide in diameter. And it's not a physical entity. It's a subtle space, a subtle tube where your prana flows. So prana enters your body through the medulla and it goes all the way down. Then again from here, that astral tube, take your left hand and put it at your spiritual eye. It goes from the medulla to the spiritual eye. So visualize that astral tube in the center of your body coming up to the medulla region, and from there bending and going towards the spiritual eye. You take in prana from the medulla, it goes down, and also you lift up that prana and it goes out through the spiritual eye. So in your deep spine, in that astral tube, that subtle thing, are chakras. These chakras are not physical bodies. They are whirlpools of energy. We know now, science has taught us that 40 years ago, we thought that maybe the atom, 50, 60 years ago, that the atom was the smallest component. And now we know that the atom is nothing but energy. It's broken up into the final particle is just a pulse of energy. So these chakras are whirlpools of energy. Now, they are placed in different parts of the body. So you've got the Mooladhara, which is at the base of the spine, all the way up. And you've got here at the breastplate is where you have the Anahat chakra, which is the heart chakra. And at the medulla is the Ajna chakra. And this has two poles. The negative pole is over here, and the positive pole of that same chakra is over here at the spiritual eye. And therefore, it is the seat to superconsciousness. And this is the broadcasting station where we send all our pleas, our prayers, our wish list out into the universe. And that's where it is received by the infinite cosmic consciousness. When we are and here is where the heart chakra is where answers come to us. We keep using the word intuition so loosely, but intuition actually means the guidance that comes to us at this receiving station, this being the broadcasting station, this being the receiving station. This is where the guidance comes to us. And the chakras, each one of them has a quality, and no chakra is good or bad. It is important, and each chakra has positive and negative traits. The negative traits also are essential, but focus on the negative traits brings us out into the ego and out into the material world. For instance, the lowermost chakra, the Mooladhara chakra, the positive traits are that it keeps us grounded, it keeps us loyal, it keeps us dependable. These are positive traits. The negative ones are that it keeps us attached to the material. We want our land, we want our property, and it, makes us sort of very rigid. We are like a stone, we cannot flow. So the important thing is that it must be in balance. And we lift the energies from there, from chakra by chakra, we lift them till we offer it at the spiritual eye. Now, the medulla, you've done that. You've answered that question in an earlier thing. It is called the mouth of God because that is where prana enters the body. So the image is that God breathes into that, and his divine consciousness, that spark of divinity, prana, comes into the body from there. And when we die, it is from here that the prana leaves the body. So you need food to feed the body, but you need prana to live, to be alive. And so our effort has to be, it's in these chakras that all the seeds of past karma go and lodge. And through our practice, we raise the energies, because these chakras are just whirlpools of energy. So first, through concentration, we cut all those sense telephones, and so our energy, instead of going outward, comes into the deep spine, and then we lift it, and along with that lift, with that magnetism, we create that current which dislodges the seeds of karma that are going round and round and round and round for thousands of lifetimes in those chakras. And they are the only things that we carry with us. That is what the soul brings into successive bodies. So we dislodge those seeds of karma, we take them up, and we bring them and we burn them in the fire of super consciousness. We offer them there, we dissolve them there. And once burnt, that particular karma doesn't come back again. So the important thing is, as far as the heart chakra is concerned, opening the heart means opening it to be able to lift the energies from there upwards and over here. In fact, the yogi is advised to live in these chakras, the higher chakras from here. There's nothing wrong with the other chakras, but to come to the state where all your energies, so you're not attached to material possessions, you are not attached to sexual pleasures, you are not, the Manipur chakra is a fiery self-control, willpower to go out and do things, just as Arjuna, he represents that. Nobody but him could have led that army. So from there to the heart chakra, which is very important because that is where we receive guidance. And it is through chanting that we open the heart chakra. And we take these energies up and we offer it over here. And that is how the cycle of prana in the advanced yogi, it flows. He trains himself to flow. Keep it flowing that way. And that is our conscious effort must be to keep our heart open, because if our heart is not open, intuition will not come to us. So does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. So as always, having received these blessings through our satsang, let us share them with our loved ones, with people around us, with the entire planet. Divine Mother, thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all thy children. Manifest thy healing presence in all bodies, in all minds, and in all souls. Rub your hands. Visualize Any person you know who's going through any problem, or visualize just your loved ones, visualize your community, your country, the entire planet, bathed in Divine Mother's white healing light. She has her eye on everyone there. And let us send our energy, our prayers to strengthen her healing powers over there with 3 loud ohms. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you for being with me. Go in love, go in joy.
Thank you, ma'am.